All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a book that poses a single, really powerful question about religion itself. And it's a question that honestly kind of gets right to the heart of some of our biggest conversations.
So the whole thing kicks off with this idea that some questions are just off limits. Not because they're too hard to answer, but because the answers might shake the very foundations of what we all agree on.
Now, what's so interesting is that the book is quick to point out that this big, scary question, it's not the one you're probably thinking of. It's not, does God exist? I mean, people debate that one all the time, right?
And it's also not trying to call anyone's faith into question. The author is really clear that, look, belief can be incredibly profound and a huge force for good. That's not what's under the microscope here. Okay, so if it's not about whether God is real, and it's not about whether people are sincere, what is this question that we supposedly avoid? Well, it turns out it's something a little more down to earth.
And there it is. That's the core of it. What if religion, its stories, its rules, the way it makes us feel, what if it all lines up perfectly with what we know about human psychology, our history, and how societies work? And the author's really careful to pose this as a genuine question, not some kind of gotcha attack. So you might be wondering, why even go there? What makes someone even think to ask that? Well, according to the book, it all starts when you begin to notice some really striking patterns across religions all over the world.
And this slide really gets to the heart of it. You look across different cultures, different continents, even places that had zero contact with each other, and you see the same kinds of stories pop up. Similar ideas about what's right and wrong, similar ways of organizing power. And religion often seems to be doing the same job for people psychologically. When you see that much overlap, you kind of have to ask, why?
And just to be super clear about the intention here, the book lays out this comparison. It asks a deep dive into those patterns. It's trying to explain why these ideas have lasted so long. But it is not trying to make fun of belief or say believers are silly or dismiss anyone's personal spiritual experience. This is all about explanation, not judgment.
Okay, so how do you even begin to answer a question that massive? You can't just take one shot at it. The book lays out a framework, a method of looking at the problem from 5 totally different but connected angles. This is really the engine room of the whole argument.
And this table breaks it all down. First, you've got the historical angle, which traces how today's sacred stories often borrow from much older myths. Then, there's the psychological view, looking at how belief helps us manage deep-seated fears, especially our fear of death. The social angle examines how religion creates systems of authority that keep communities stable. Fourth is the epistemic angle. That's a big word, but it just means looking at how, over time, a religion's claims shift from "God told me this directly" to "here's how we interpret what God said." And finally, the constructive angle, which asks, okay, what's next? What does meaning look like if it's not handed down from on high? Each one gives you a different piece of the puzzle.
So after looking at religion from all those different sides, what's the point? Why does asking this question even matter? The book argues it actually changes everything about how we see our place in the world.
And here's the big takeaway. Even if you come to the conclusion that religion is something we humans created, that does not mean it's worthless. Not at all.
Instead, it means something totally different. It means we're accountable for it. The responsibility is no longer on some divine being, it's on us. The buck stops here.
And this is where the idea of stewardship comes in. The goal is no longer just to obey a set of ancient rules. The new task is to take active responsibility for the systems of meaning and morality that we create and pass on. It's about owning it.
Which brings it all back to this one final powerful question. Do the gods we worship look a lot like the people who worship them? The book suggests that if the answer is yes, that doesn't lead to a dead end. It actually points toward a more profound, more mature kind of human responsibility. And that is a thought that could change everything.